Thank you for coming. I apologize for starting late. I'm not a late person. I don't believe in being late. But today and this week, it's just been whatever it's going to be. So, but I'm going to be very positive because we're going to hear some very positive speakers today. We're going to talk a little bit about Martin Luther King and his ideas in terms of economic empowerment, advocacy, which most of us in here are doing, and service, okay? And then we're also getting a chance to meet 4 candidates that are running in the area. And they're all first-timers, okay? And I really want you to support them and really listen to all of them because I think they all have a very different and unique angle about what they're about. And in politics today, as we well know, most people are not that unique. They're pretty cookie cutter. And but these people, as far as I'm concerned, are all great. And I just appreciate you all, especially this week because it's just been a very difficult week for me. So we're going to start with voter registration, a little education with Mr. James Sweeting, okay?
Yeah, I got it. All right, so first of all, welcome everybody. One more question. I got it. Welcome everybody for being here. I'm hiding behind the border here, but I would just like to say a couple of things. Sarahia, myself, and a couple of people from the African American Democratic Club had an idea and a vision. Just happened to be that our particular meeting, which is the third Monday, coincided this month with Martin Luther King's birthday. And so the idea was, are we going to cancel the meeting because it was an off day? It was a holiday, or were we going to do something? And I am blessed with people like Sarahia, like Perry's, like the other people with the Dems who encouraged me. So they said, go big, do something unusual. So let's make it a voter registration and economic empowerment rally. And so that's what we're doing. I mean, this is just the first one. We'll be doing them in the future. So we're kind of working out the kinks of the first one. And so I want to first of all thank the people for coming as we work this out. And I want to specifically thank the candidates for taking their time. I'm going to make sure that the community knows those people who are disposed to coming down here and assisting us and letting us know. One of the things the African American Democratic Club of Maryland, and particularly Harford County, Maryland, is to do is not interface or be a liaison. We want to open doors for the community, the entire community to walk through, to get to know each other and to become as one. So that being said, the first thing that we have to do in this, we've identified Edgewood obviously as a key center of the African American vote.
Because what percent voted last year? What percent?
What percent was it?
8%.
So,
that means less than 1,000 votes.
For you candidates, that means that you could need to kind of work with us to get the vote active and out here, because this is the essential bedrock, this is the energy, this is the heart of Democratic Harford County. This is where your Democratic voters are. But if we only get 8% of the voters out, you're not going to be successful. So what we have to do is we have to start working today. We have a primary coming now, and of course we have, in November, we have the major election. So what we have to do is we come forward and move is that we have to get everybody together and increase our voter output. How do we do that? We get people excited. We have events, we have the candidates come out, we give you every opportunity to interface with the community and every opportunity for us as a community to interface with you. So a little bit about voter registration. A couple of things that we're missing with the 8% population. First of all, it is possible. It is possible now for felons to vote. March 2016, that has changed. But a lot of people still feel that if I have a felony conviction, I cannot register and I cannot vote. We need to get out step number one of the agenda of African American Democratic Club for the last year is to get people registered and get people to vote. Our biggest population is not necessarily felons, but that's a major part of the component of the population that need to be out. We need to reach out to get the vote. We have to get, number two, people excited. How do you get people excited about voting? Well, the fact is, elections make a difference. But it's not simply enough to say, this candidate is horrible, or, it's not simply enough to use Donald Trump or Andy Harris or anybody else as a foil. We have to give people an affirmative reason to go out and vote. Now, voting does make a difference, and elections make a difference. And if you, healthcare, your insurance rates for healthcare are going up, if your taxes are going up, if your roads aren't fixed, if you have no voice in Bel Air, then we have to put two and two together and show all the communities of Harford County the importance of getting out and voting. So we're going to have a voter registration initiative. Working with several other attorneys here in Baltimore City, so we're going to put not only poll watchers together, but if you have questions about registering to vote, or the law associated with voter registration, we're going to be in position to have a rapid response team and provide legal answers for those questions. So we're trying to put everything that we can in place to make sure that we facilitate and make the voting process happen easier. We have to get that 8% rate up. If we get up to 28%, then Hartford will be a blue county. And so, it's going to take some work. It's going to be frustrating. Sometimes the music's not going to work. Sometimes you're not going to have enough folding chairs. And that's what it is. I mean, if you guys are running for office, activism, candidacy, being involved in the community, you understand that sometimes it's on a shoestring. Sometimes it's frustrating. Sometimes you want to say, hey, why am I getting up and doing that? But then you think about the children, you think about your children, the other children, you think about schools that are not heated, you think about all of the issues that face all of the communities, and the fact that we have a challenge to do better and a challenge to get up off our rear ends and do something for the community. That is by voting. So if you have a question, your candidates have a question with your candidacy. If you have a question about registering people to vote, if you run into issues at polling places, if you run into issues with your signs and where they can be placed, if you run into any issues relative to elections, please feel free to give us a call, the African American Democratic Club of Harford County, or check with us online, and we will get a response to you. We'll try to make sure it's the proper response, but we will certainly get a response to you. So that's our voter registration initiative. We wanted to launch that today on Martin Luther King Day because it's very important. There is no dream without action. There is no achievement without work. There is no moving forward. We all have to sacrifice. And a lot of times I think, we're not called, we're blessed. I'm fat and happy, I'll be honest with you. And I haven't missed too many meals. We've been blessed to live in this country. But it's not only about giving back. Sometimes you're called to action and you don't know, why. I'm thankful. I wasn't called to run up Mount Suribachi, and serve in World War II like my father was. I was not called to fight the Klan and be in Florida like my grandfather was. I wasn't called to do a lot of the things that they worked hard to make sure that I didn't have to do. But I am called to do something. And maybe the mission is today to come forward and do something to make sure that we, the people, return to politics in the United States, and we start here in Harford County with that, to make sure that it's not all about how much money you can raise, that people aren't deterred from running to office simply because they don't have $1 million in the bank and somebody doesn't come to the candidates and say, hey, this person raised so much money, so why are you even trying? We have to return politics to the people. Doing so is by electing them and getting started. So if you have a need, an issue with your candidacy, if you have a need, if you're just a citizen thinking about how do I get out to vote, give us a call. AA Dems Voter Initiative is started, and we're going to make it happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, my computer's still doing what it's doing. So while it's doing what it's doing, I want to introduce Mr. Jesse Colvin, who's running for District 1. And I met Jesse at the, I think it's the New Harford Dem meeting, and I want to tell you something. from minute one, when we talked, he was just always so really nice to me and very personal and said, if I could do anything for you, I'll be there. So the fact that he showed up, and I'm just so happy and I appreciate you. And obviously I wish you luck. I mean, Allison is like a friend, so I'm not saying I'm hedging, but I'm just saying. I love you though too. But fortunately, I don't get to make the decision because I'm on the border in Aberdeen where, believe it or not, like literally 2 doors, I can't vote for neither one of them. So thank God I don't have to make the decision, so I can just love you both. Okay, so without further ado, Mr. Jesse Colvin, thank you.
Can you hear me if I don't use the microphone?
Yes.
Okay. Hello. Hello. My name is Jesse Colvin. Thank you very much for having me here today. I especially want to thank you, Espen. I'm not sure how you're here today. I think you being here today is a testament to strength and courage, and my wife and I just want to pass along continued strength and courage in the coming weeks and coming months.
Yeah.
Special lady up there. Dr. King is a hero to so many, including me. I am an educated man, and I was an officer who served in the Army Rangers, but neither schooling nor the Army taught me the art of the oratory. And being Jewish, I didn't have the opportunity to hone that craft from the pulpit of the church, like Dr. King. So while I fear that what I say today will not stir the souls of men like Dr. King could, I hope that my words at least will demonstrate my commitment to the message. Today, I am a newlywed. My wife, Jordan, and I are expecting our first child. And in preparation for today, I went ahead and read a letter that Dr. King sent to his then future wife, Greta. So he wrote, "Let us continue to hope, work, and pray that in the future we will live to see a warless world, a better distribution of wealth, and a brotherhood that transcends race or color. This is the gospel that I will preach to the world." Well, I'm a Democrat and my wife is a Republican, so transcending the politics part, I hope we're working on that part at home. But I also feel as a veteran, as an expectant father, and as an American, that we can't rest until the justice and progress that Dr. King hoped and worked and prayed for is within our reach. Justice that brings us a stronger economy, justice that brings us a cleaner environment, justice that places a greater emphasis on equality for every color, gender, and creed. For 8 years, we were on the way. We were on the way to realizing justice and progress, together, all of us. But in just 1 year, we have seen Washington try to strip away health care from millions of Americans. We have seen Washington pass a massive tax cut for the wealthy, while telling us at the same time that we cannot afford to pay health insurance for our poorest of children. We have seen Washington try to strip protections from our most vulnerable immigrants. We have seen Washington push aside concerns about clean air and clean water, issues that disproportionately affect poor communities and communities of color. We have seen our president declare that peaceful protesters in Charlottesville shared blame with neo-Nazis who were chanting for white power. And it was in reaction to these circumstances that I, as a newlywed, non-politician who was enjoying a rewarding career, began my campaign. And when I think about that quote, I can confidently say that the policies coming from Washington today would once again cause Dr. King to stand up and protest. The Civil Rights Movement was built in part on the idea of the social gospel. Dr. King's doctrine was concerned, as he wrote, with the whole man, not only his soul but his body, not only his spiritual well-being, but his material well-being. You do not need me to tell you that this meant the right to sit at a lunch counter or enter a voting booth, but it also means that people have a right to a job that pays fair wages, the right to affordable health insurance, the right to schools with working heat, the right to breathe clean air and drink clean water, and the right to expect that your elected officials work not for lobbyists or big business, but for you and me and for us. Those same concerns should be at the heart of anyone's campaign for elected office, and you can be sure that these concerns and Dr. King's message of community and civility and fairness are at the heart of mine. So thank you for those that are here today, and thank you, Dr. King, for being a light in the darkness. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for coming. I truly appreciate you because I kind of gave the candidates a little challenge to have it related to MLK, and the truth is they're in the campaign trail, and they're really trying to get out there to win. And the fact that all that have come and those who came, you know, impromptu, that are going to take their time to do this, you guys just don't know how much it means to me. I mean, this is the only thing that kept me sane this last week, to be honest with you. So I thank you, Jesse. And you're a friend, whether you realize it or not. You can't get rid of me regardless about politics, because you're going to always be a friend. So I would like to give him an opportunity, though, if you want, to answer some questions, because I think it's only fair that we get at least a little bit of the views of the candidate. Because yes, it is about MLK, but one thing MLK believed in, that policies made the difference in Americans' lives, okay? So I want to give each candidate a chance. So I'm going to start with you, Jesse. Does anybody have a question for him?
I'll say one thing real quick first. My speech, I happen to meet, my speechwriter right now, his day job is he's the speechwriter for President Obama, and I know that sounds a little bit ludicrous, but his mom lives in this congressional district, and she came to an event, and we started talking. So if you didn't like my speech, please know it was the delivery, and not the man who wrote it. I think in the history of speech writing to speech giving, this is the most lopsided ratio in the history of that. So I just want to let you guys know that.
Let me tell you something. As a first-time runner, in my opinion, nobody has to be perfect, because that just shows you being yourself. And we're all going through this process, you know, maybe less me because I've been a professional musician, I ain't gonna lie, I'm a little ham. But I'm just saying most of the people that are running, so don't you ever apologize, because you can only get better through doing it more and just getting comfortable and showing us who you are, because who I've talked to is a fantastic person. I mean, to be honest with you, on a personal level. So, I mean, but then again, I think all y'all are fantastic, so what does that mean? I might not be the best judge, but does anybody have any questions for him in terms of his economic policies or anything?
Well, I guess it's more of a comment, because we've met numerous times on the campaign trail, and I just wanted, he didn't say this, so I think you ought to know this, that he's quit his job, and his full-time job is running for this position.
Yeah.
So you got to give him a lot of credit for that.
Yeah, because I'm going to tell you something. I used to live in Jarrettsville. I know I'm dominating everything, but I'm thinking this off the top. I used to live in Jarrettsville, Maryland. I was one of 5 black families. If you guys know where Jarrettsville, Maryland is, okay? And nobody ever tested anybody in that area. It just always was assumed, whether it was Democrat or Republican, because really they were all the same, didn't matter what their title was. And it was just assumed that this one was going to win. And then when they found out this one was having an affair with a gay lover and was married, they went to the next one. And I'm just being honest, that's some real history. But I'm just so happy that you guys are competing, because we've got to put pressure on this party Andy Harris literally is a ringer of no consequence, of no substance, okay? So we gotta really try to help get out the word, so whoever ends up being the candidate that wins, we really need to still support, okay? Anybody else have a question? There you go.
What are your views on the immigration, and especially the DACA?
Yeah, I come from a family of immigrants. I think a lot of people forget that a lot of us or all come from family immigrants. My great-great-grandfather showed up here in 1899, Port Baltimore. We've been here ever since. Those children, we need to protect them. You came here at 3, you deserve to be here and to stay. It's being handled right now like a political football, which is a shame and sad. So the very short answer is we need to protect the dreamers, and that's where I come down on that. There are other folks who want to talk about. I think we're good. So border security comes up a lot, and there are some folks, I think at one end of the spectrum, who thinks we shouldn't have any border with any country, and I think there are folks over here who want to build the highest wall possible and treat it like it's the medieval times with a wall and a moat. I think the middle ground, I hope everyone could agree, is that what we don't have is really good information. So put the security aspects of the wall to the side. I worked inside as a consultant to the Department of Homeland Security for a year. They have very poor data when it comes to how many folks are actually crossing the border. Sometimes it's a Customs and Border Patrol agent going out in a truck and looking at footprints in the sand and sending a report back up, and they get aggregated. And there are so many decisions made on the number of folks we think come in and come out of this country every year. So I hope that whatever decision comes out of Washington this week, next week, and in the coming future, they come up with a way to at least figure out the flows going back and forth, because that will allow us to make smarter decisions. But to answer your question directly, I said protect the dreamers.
Well, do you think that what he's doing or what they're doing now is causing us to be taking away our safety instead of, because you've been to other countries where there's more terrorism going on than what is here. So do you think that that's what can ignite more terrorism from the rhetoric that they're doing now?
I think the rhetoric that would have us be afraid of somebody who looks different from you and comes from a different country south of our border is doing some serious and significant damage.
So you're saying hatred?
Correct. Yes, sir. By the way, I went and spoke with some law enforcement officers in Cecil County, and I said, hey, I'd love to talk to you about immigration. What I heard was, we signed up because we care about our community, and we care about the folks in our community. I didn't sign up because I want to spend 9 to 5 tearing apart families and kicking door down and dragging 8-year-olds back across. So the hatred piece, that is being used as political football, and it's being used as something to divide us. This whole day is about what we have in common, our shared values. It's tough. It's one of the reasons why.
Jawanda?
This is not exactly about your campaign, but from the position you had before. Do they do the same scrutiny? Is the same scrutiny in place for Canada's border as it is for Mexico's?
Us going out.
No, them coming in.
All right. If the question is, do we have a better sense of how many folks are coming from our northern neighbor into this country, I don't know. We spend less time looking at it because we have less people come, less immigrants are coming from the north as opposed to through Mexico.
How is that okay, then I'll just take that.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I belong to Harford County Climate Action Group, and we're an environmental group. And so what is your feeling about getting off of, how quickly would you move to get off of fossil fuels and go to renewable energy?
So we had to fill out a questionnaire for a PAC, an environmental PAC, and one of the questions was, would you agree to this, what was laid out in the Paris Climate Accords? And I said I would love to, but I think unfortunately we're going to be playing a lot of defense when it comes to defending the environment until 2020. I think getting to where we wanted to get to by 2030, 2050 is probably not realistic right now. given what's going to happen between now and if we look at how the EPA is just being stripped apart. Renewable energy is, if it's not the fastest growing industry in the state, it's at the top of the list, and there's no reason it can't continue to be at the top of the list. I think from the position, if I'm lucky enough to serve, is, for example, Harford or Chesapeake Community College. Why can't there be a solar major? Why can't there be, if you want to install panels or repair panels or sell panels, that could be a 2-year program. There's an industry waiting for you. It's going to bring industry into the state. There's no reason we can't, at this level, if things are that chaotic at the national level, at least make progress, continue to make progress here in the state.
Any other questions?
I have one. So what would you do to bring us together as a nation? I mean, we seem to be so split.
Yeah, well, first off,
Get a new president.
what's that? You said new
Get a new president.
Yes.
Start there.
It helps that I'm a Democrat and my wife's a Republican, because it shows that in this rhetoric-filled world we live in, it can be done. I know when I got married, when I had my first day with my wife, I was just trying to get to date number 2. We never thought this would be part of the political story. I talk about my time in the military. I mean, my first 4 bosses, my first assignment. The battalion commander was African American from South Carolina. His number 2 was Hispanic from Texas. His number 3 was he said, Lieutenant Colvin, I'm from Kentucky, and I grew up poor and white, and I grew up in a hovel. I said, Major, what is a hovel? He said, when you grow up poor and white in Kentucky, that's what you grew up in. And our 4th in command was Korean American. That was the professional environment I cut my teeth in. So there was no Republican, there was no Democrat. We all wore Army green, and that's an attitude you can bring to the table. And it starts here. It's meetings like this. It's just getting in the room. It's just breaking down. We all live in these media bubbles and Facebook bubbles. It happens from the ground up. It's conversations like this. And like was said earlier, it should be the first of many. So there's no silver bullet, but you start here and you keep doing it.
Okay, I'm going to let Christopher have the last question because I realize time is moving on, and Allison's going to be speaking next, so she's going to have to go. But you can be the last one to ask a question, Christopher.
Thank you. The so-called war on drugs has led to mass incarceration of thousands and thousands of black and brown people and impacted communities of color and poor communities. What kinds of strategies would you either support or initiate on a local level to deal with this issue and reduce some of the profit from the business of mass incarceration in private prisons?
I grew up in a home where the drug trade was talked about every night. My dad's been in the public defender's office for 34 years. The vast majority of his clients are men or African American. And he's in the appellate division, so he was going to lose 99% of his cases. My mom was a judge in Baltimore City. Drug trade was a dominant theme at our dinner table because that's what they lived every day. We're not going to arrest our way out of this problem. I thought we had figured that out. Flash forward to last year with who's in the presidential administration. I think we're going to have to painfully relearn that lesson. So you asked what I can do, Christopher? It's when the Attorney General says, hey, we need to take a relook at how we're going to prosecute crimes associated with marijuana, it's fighting back on that. It's taking a look at privatization of prisons, take a look at the recidivist rates and how people come out and how they're treated, and the way what's the best way to put this? The humanity or lack thereof that may exist in those prisons, that's where you can do it. So and the other thing is just, it's going to take a new blood, new generation of leadership. It's folks who are young, in their 30s. There's going to be a lot of guys and gals like me running who are military veterans who just have done our deployments in Iraq and Afghanistan and want to come back and fix problems. And the idea, we've been stripped of our ideology because that will get you killed on the battlefields of Iraq and Afghanistan. So you come back with hoping for common sense solutions and practical solutions. So this is an issue that the answers are there. It's just the political leadership and will to get it done.
Well, thank you, Jesse. Again, give him a hand, please. At this point, I was going to go through a reading, but I'm going to actually stop and let Allison go because she has to leave to go to, I think you said Annapolis. So I want to give her an opportunity to speak. She's running in District 7 for State Delegate. which is, like, I remember when Falston was not inhabited. I'm gonna tell you something, it was like all the few rich people there, and yeah, the politics hasn't changed there either. So I'm so happy to hear that she's put her name in that bucket, okay? So with further ado, Miss Allison Berkowitz.
Hey everybody, thank you so much for having me. This is my second speaking engagement and I'm making progress. Last time you might not have noticed, but I literally had every word printed out that I was intending to say, and this time just bullet points. So moving on up in the world. Anyway, so like I said, like she said rather, I'm running in District 7. It's an uphill battle, but I'm excited for it. You know, it's a really unique time in history, and I'm really proud to be a part of all of the communities coming together to fight back and try to make our country better. Like we've been talking about today, there's really sickening divisiveness, and I think so many of us want that to be different, and so it's really nice to see people standing up and trying. So, on that note, the quote that I chose of Dr. King's is, "What good is it to sit? What is it? What good is it to have the right to sit at a counter if you can't order a hamburger?" So I feel like a lot of Dr. King's principles tie into my campaign because my biggest issues are poverty, healthcare, education. I don't know how involved in the environment he was, but the environment's another one of my big ones. But like I said, the main one is poverty. I lived in poverty for a lot of my adulthood, and I've been an anti-poverty advocate for about a year now. I go lobby our legislators at the state and federal level to try to support causes that I think will help us, like the Earned Income Tax Credit. There's an effort to try to expand that because that helps a lot of people. Gosh, I don't remember the number, but it's many thousands of people are lifted out of poverty, above the poverty line, as a result of programs like Earned Income Tax Credit, Medicaid, SNAP. So I work hard to try to prevent those safety nets from getting cut. So, and that's another reason why I am running at the House level, because I have a decent amount of experience working with the legislative process, seeing what goes into making bills and what it takes to get bills passed. So I've also been reading and analyzing bills for several years now, so I think I have a good handle on, you know, what goes into them. I think that a lot of people think because Black people and Black communities have the right to vote, and we have technically desegregated schools, that everything's good. But I feel like nothing could be further from the truth. I was just telling my mother-in-law today about, you know, what I was planning on talking about, and she, you know, she herself didn't realize, you know, so we had to have a talk. I said, you know, a lot of people think it's an even playing field, but when you think about it, slavery was not so long ago, right? And so when you think about how do white people have the advantages that we do, wealth and land, these things are transferred over, you know, generation after generation, whereas many Black people, I won't say all, because obviously there are some families that were able to hold on to wealth and land. A lot of people had to start from nothing. So, you know, to me, it just makes sense that all of these problems compounded on one another, right? When you don't have access to affordable housing, you know, it's hard to get a job. When you don't have a job, you know, you can't pay for a better school, or, you know, right? All of these things kind of compound. It's, you know, maybe perhaps easier to get into crime than if you had lived a different life, if you had lived in a different neighborhood. And then we know that the practices of sentencing are unfair for based on race, right? The same crime committed by a Black person versus a white person has a very different sentence. It's been proven many times. So, like I said, I think there are all these obstacles that the Black communities face, and most people, for some reason, like, don't realize that they're there. So I think that that's one of the biggest things that we need to confront in our time, and I hope that we can do that. Let's see. And one of the things that I think we can do to get there is, what was your name again, sir?
Mr. James.
Say again? James Sweeney, okay. Like Mr. Sweeney was talking about earlier, I really, just lit me up because he was talking about registering people to vote and building power, and you know, that's really exciting to me. I've been a community organizer for 15 years, and like he said, I'm going to Annapolis right after this because the fight for $15, the minimum wage increase, is kicking off today, so I'm going to help support that group. That coalition of groups, rather. So I think building coalitions, as Dr. King did, is one of the most effective ways to bring about great change. So that's what I'm hoping to do, be a part of, rather. Yeah, I don't think, that's the last thing I'll say, is that I don't think campaigns are about the person running. I think they're about the people that you seek to serve. Because, to be totally honest, I didn't particularly want to run at this point in my life, but nobody was running, and someone asked me to. So eventually I said, let's do it. So I'm really excited about what's going to come in our communities. I think that's all I'm getting. Does anybody have any questions, like a quick one?
What do you, what's your take on student loans?
Oh, they're evil. No, I mean, really, it's so sad. One of the people in our Together We Will group, Kristen Messenger, I'm not sure how that's how she pronounces her last name. Oh, I don't think she would mind me sharing. She's a pretty open person. That she's got pretty crippling student debt, and it's so sad. It just so happened that where I lived in Orlando, Florida, there were no jobs after I finished school. So I went and took the first job offer, which was in rural Alaska. So if you can imagine, to get you out there, they have to give some pretty decent, you know, just incentives, exactly. So one of those was that I was able to pay off my student loans in the first year. I was living in the middle of nowhere in a village of like 3,500 people, so I deserved it, I think. But anyway, so that's all to say, I mean, I think education should be free. There are a lot of other, not free, we earn it, right? We pay our taxes. I don't know, to me it makes sense. It not only benefits the individual people, I think it also benefits our entire communities and you know, cities. So that's what I would like to see us work towards. It seems like in a lot of other countries they have that, and it's a really great system. And you know, it doesn't, you know, a lot of people look down on that because they feel like the career, you know, how are we going to pay for doctors if, you know, but other places work it out. So I think we could too.
Next question. Sir.
If you do make it to Annapolis, would you think about trying to pass or some kind of legislation to put the sheriff more accountable to the county council instead of just not having to account to no one for his actions, especially for spending?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And one thing you'll learn about me very quickly is I will never pretend to know something I don't. So let me just tell you, I have very little knowledge of how the local relationship works between the sheriff and the council. So that's something I would have to learn more about. If you have any information about that,
he doesn't answer to anyone.
Yeah. Well, I'm very detail oriented, so I would like, you know,
very detailed.
Talk to
he does
people.
not answer to anyone.
I like my data. Data is my friend.
She's good with it.
I like it.
So, but like I said, so at this time, that's not something I know very much about, but I would love to learn more. So if I can, you know, get your info and maybe you can tell me more about it or let me know where I can find out more info. I'm very big on accountability, right? I think people need to have the ability to take initiative, to lead, to do what they need to do, but they also have to be accountable. There has to be a balance there. So I imagine...
Okay, just personally, would you, let's see, how should I say this? They're doing a fundraiser and they're auctioning off an assault rifle, and he's part of that.
Yeah.
You know, would you stand for that?
Well, I mean, I don't know that that is something I could legislate. Like, you know, there would have to be a law that he was breaking in order to, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
So not off the top of my head, I don't think that there's a law I could make that could prevent that. Maybe something to do, you know, there's a lot of things that we need in the way of campaign finance reform. So perhaps there would be something there in the way of people in prominent roles, such as the sheriff, aren't allowed to get involved in influencing a local election in that way. I think it's Sergeant Penman that you're talking about, right? Who's,
Yes.
yeah, so, Right, he's running against me. I've actually, speaking of coalition building, I've reached out to him and said that I'd love to meet him and chat, because I'm all about what's best for our district, whether that's me or someone else. So, did that answer your question at all, or not really?
No, not really, but
Okay.
I can go with that.
Well, what she's saying is that she, as a legislator, cannot create miracles.
Right.
And so the only way to put someone like that in check, a sheriff is accountable to the local, so the county council would have to have the power, and she could do that. She could put something through to say that now it falls under a certain umbrella. I don't know if they're gonna do it. And I'm not gonna say they're gonna do it. Understand, you can put, just to let you know, Jerron, I know you shake your head, what I'm saying is they can put any law through. It doesn't mean it's constitutional. Do you know what I'm saying? It doesn't mean it's right. I'm just saying that maybe she could put something through where they could censor him in certain circumstances when it becomes too political. You know what I'm saying? Or you might have to sit there, because you've been on the county council.
Yeah, I could probably help you with that a little bit. In fact, what we have going on last year, we're supporting collective bargaining for the sheriff's deputies, and that'll put a handle on the sheriff, because right now it's more or less just like you say, it's like a dictatorship. They get collective bargaining, and that's where I come from. I'm a business agent for electrical unions, so I've negotiated hundreds of collective bargaining agreements. And if they legally get collective bargaining, that bill's gonna come up. It came up last year, and they just got a watered down version. But Mary Ann Osanti's gonna help us put the bill back in. I testified the last time in Annapolis on the bill, and I'll testify on it again. Get collective bargaining, that's gonna help a whole lot.
So could you explain the connection a little bit more than that? Because I
Well,
understand what collective bargaining is, but what I'm saying, the connection in
You know what
terms of-
collective bargaining is?
No, I know what it is, but what
Okay.
I'm saying is, in terms of the sheriff, how is that working? Is the money going directly to his department? That's what I'm trying to
Yeah,
understand.
the money goes, there's 13 departments in the county.
Okay.
And there's Parks and Recs, there's the council is a department, the county executive is a department, and there's all these different planning and zoning is a department, and each department, gets X millions of dollars to run their operation, and it's all different, okay? And the sheriff's department gets a pretty good nut, because they got 500-600 employees, running.
Oh, really?
They're actually almost like well, they are, they're basically a police department, but they're called a sheriff's department. What happens is, right now, you have a situation where the sheriff, he's kind of, I don't want to use the word dictator, but it's awful close to that, because the employees don't have any right to bargain for any of their wages, their working conditions, their holidays, none of that, It's all kind of dictated between the sheriff and the county executive. Now, the bill came up last year, and the county executive wasn't in favor of it, but I'll say the sheriff did come down there and wanted to support it. Okay, and it hasn't went through in its total, what we want, okay, which is, full collective bargaining with the right to arbitrate. They can't have a right to strike because of who they are, but they should have a right to collective bargaining, and they come to impasse on issues that they're negotiating, then it should go to an arbitrator to decide it.
Okay.
And they don't want to do that, okay?
Of course not.
They want to be the one, they'll say, well, yeah, we'll have collective bargaining, and we'll sit down and negotiate, and you say, well, the union will say, well, we want 3%, and the sheriff and the county, well, we're only going to give you 1%.
I think we might
Yes.
want to table this.
Well, I
we
know,
know-
it's
Oh, no, it's a very
it's
complex
Next-
issue, something
next
I want to learn a
question.
lot about, but
All right, Jawanda.
Yes, ma'am.
I just want to segue off of when I was shaking my head, and specific coming back to Allison.
Oh, okay.
Looking at, you're running for District 7 for the state legislature. A lot of times, state legislation cannot specifically
Right.
be for a city council or
No, I know.
the county issues as far as conduct or behavior,
Right.
and that's what I was shaking my head
No, I
to.
know,
And-
but what I was saying,
Yeah.
there are still, I guess what I'm saying, everything's connected. And there's no such thing that you can't do nothing, because if they could put policy in the president's hand, and he could do this, and it affects everybody in the US, you don't think that the state representatives can't put some stuff out there that can affect the county? I believe we can, it's just a matter of figuring it out. Now, I'm not saying I know, to be honest with you, I'm just being honest with you, but I think it's fair to, and that's why I asked you a little bit more, Mr. Dion, because I didn't understand how they divvied that out, and I think that's important.
You're correct. What she would have, if she was there, what she would have a right to do was to create state enabling legislation to give the county council the right. Because right now, the county
See what I'm
council
saying?
does not have the right to give the deputies collective bargaining. It's got to come from the state, it's got to get state enabling legislation, because there's been a number of issues that have state enabling legislation at the council.
I'll just add that I think I'm a pretty level-headed person. I've worked in all types of backgrounds. Before I went to school, back to school to be a social worker, I worked as an executive assistant in a construction firm. So I'm very, like I said, business-oriented, I'm very organized. And even though my personal beliefs might be a bit more left than the average person in this county, I would intend to represent the people here, you know, whatever the majority of the constituents want and brought to me to work on. So I'm not going to be going around saying, free healthcare, free education right now.
One last question. Anybody have a question? Kristen?
We know you have many years of experience in the school system. If you are elected, what kind of changes would you like to implement? You talked about some of the disparities. There are many racial disparities, financial disparities within Harford County school system.
Sure.
What kinds of issues would you address?
This is something I can hit on a little more, give you more concrete, because I've been researching education a little more lately. I actually just recently spoke with a father of a special needs child who lives here in Harford, and he told me that he has some really atrocious challenges because his son has an IEP and the school can't follow it. And I said, well, what do they tell you as the reason why? He said, I don't remember if he confirmed it, but I suspected it would probably be a lack of resources. I think he imagined that that's what it was as well. No, I'd love to hear more about your perspective later. But
no, I was shaking my head not about that, but it's a legal document, so
right, and that's what he asserts is it doesn't matter what you have or not. You know, you have to do it. However, so again, his needs aren't being met, but I do suspect it is probably from a lack of resources. I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I'm just saying. Well, what I'm saying is I think things don't just happen for no reason. They happen for a reason, and I think it's important to find out what that is so we can try to prevent it or fix it. So I would try to go to bat to see if we can get more resources, if that's what was needed. If it was some other problem, a lack of leadership or some miscommunication, whatever it was, I would try to work with parties wherever possible to fix those, whatever's causing those problems. I'd also like to see smaller class sizes, just making sure that teachers and children have everything they need to succeed. I trying to think of, as you know, we're on the disrupting the school to prison pipeline group together, so there's lots of different ideas about what's the best way to handle it. I don't have the right one, but I can tell you I would definitely research all the options available to us and take input from the community and with all of us together try to make the best decisions possible. I think kids are our future, right? Frederick Douglass said it's easier to build strong children than to repair broken men. I believe that profoundly because I've done mental health therapy in rural Alaska and in Orlando, Florida with the poorest of the poor, and broken adults are heartbreaking. And I mean, any person broken is tragic, but if we can get to kids when they're younger, we often can avoid some of those problems later on. So I would do everything I can to help in education. Is that all right?
Yeah.
I am very available. Call me, email me anytime. I'm not too Nicholas. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you so much, Allison. One, I really appreciated your words about Dr. Martin Luther King and implemented it in your speech and how it actually even affected you today where you had a discussion with somebody. And that's what we have to do in this community. It's so great to see that Allison is running, and I wish you all the best, one, and I'll support you as much as I can because I'm running too. And wish you luck going down to Annapolis. Get our money.
Yes, ma'am.
Go get our money, girl. Go get our money. All right, I do want to take 1 second to do a little bit of a reading about MLK, and then I was wondering, Allison, because you were supposed to be speaking at 2:30. I don't want to make you go too late. And Andre,
Yes, ma'am.
would you mind if she went before you?
Absolutely
I'm all
not.
good.
You sure?
Yeah.
Because I'm not somebody who likes doing things late, and I don't know your schedule, and I don't want to take it for granted, okay?
I'm all yours.
Okay, well, now, you know what, Allison, don't say that. I could keep you here until midnight, but anyway, no, I'm just joking. But anyway, I want to do a little reading about Martin Luther King. Martin Luther King, when he went down to Birmingham, Alabama, he went to help the locals, you know, and try to fight for their particular rights. And unfortunately, he ended up in jail, like most real advocates do. Part of our sacrifices ended up in jail. And some of us don't quite understand it, because, you know, I'm going to be honest with you, it's 2018, we're wet nap babies. We like to be comfortable, and we'd rather stay uncomfortable, being comfortable, and being uncomfortable. But in either case, he ended up in jail. And in that process, 8 clergy in the area of Alabama wrote him a letter. And I'm not going to read the letter because it's really disgusting. That's the best way I could describe it. But it went to the address of saying he was an outsider, and we have our Negroes under control, and we're trying to work this out, yada, yada, yada. So in that process, Dr. King had nothing but time on his hands, and he wrote, I want to say a 16-page letter. And to me, it's some of the most religious and spiritual, as well as just what humankind needs to be about, that we are all interconnected. Like, he didn't even know the word interconnected at that time. He just was going on his own. So I want to start off where, let's see here. Let me make sure I have my thing here. So in the first quote, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all. So this is perhaps one of MLK's most famous lines. It serves so many purposes in the way his letter was started, because he gave a reason for his purpose to come down there and help his fellow man. But he also gave his religious reason. It was sort of like in the vein of Jesus Christ. And I don't want to get too religious, but he was pretty religious, you would think. As all too many others have been more cautious than courageous, and have remained silent behind the anesthetizing security of a stained glass window. He also said, we will have to repent in this generation, not merely for the vitriolic words and actions of bad people, but for the appalling silence of the good people. And I feel like in this particular area, we have lived in a constant group of really silent people. See you later, dear Sasha. But I feel great to see all these new candidates coming out, because I feel like they are giving energy to this area. They are giving a little bit more focus, and people are desiring to step out really more on faith than what they were before. So that's just a couple things that I wanted to address in the letters of Birmingham. If you get an opportunity to read it, I suggest you read it. It will give you strength, it will give you focus, because if you're really in advocacy, and I know most of us are in Together We Will, or the Dems, or we're in a whole bunch of groups, you need to have something that reinvigorates you, because let me tell you, people are going to tell you what you're doing is crazy. You're going to need your strength, and I suggest you read it. It's a great work, and I can't say more about it, so thank you for listening to that.
Can I add?
Sure, dear.
So I have a list of quotes here.
Okay.
Yes. Just need to learn how to stand up from the
That's
chair.
okay, you're doing fine. You did it so nice.
In the same vein, shallow understanding from people of goodwill is more frustrating than absolute misunderstanding from people of ill will. Lukewarm acceptance is much more bewildering than outright rejection.
That's good.
That is also from letter from a Birmingham jail.
Yes. So I think we need to take those words. We need to take those words and use them to our advantage and our favor. So the next person that's going to be speaking will be Andre Johnson. Now, I met Andre at a Together We Will function where it was called Walking While Black. And I got a very good time. I actually got to meet the director, and actually he's helping me with my next documentary, so actually it was a great thing. But in going to that, he was part of the panel. And I was really impressed with him. And I'm not saying that I guess I like everybody. I'd be honest with you, I kind of like everybody in some respect. But I was really impressed with him. And part of the reason why I was impressed with him, because he was a cop. And I haven't always had the best interaction with cops, especially when I used to live in Los Angeles. But I thought he was such a fantastic human being. And the more he started talking to me, the more he started warning me. And then when he said, I'm running for county council in District A, I was like, we got to do some things together. So without further ado, my friend, and the next, possibly, I can't call it because I'm not the voter, Andre Johnson. Thank you.
Thank you. My take and my thing that I looked at Dr. King was that I picked out this, and this is relevant today. Dr. King said back in the late 50s, yes, the hour is dark. Evil comes forth in the guise of good. It is time of double talk, where men in high places have a high blood pressure of deceptive rhetoric and an anemia for concrete performance. That is so relevant today. That was back in the late 50s that Dr. King said that. He said, for those people that cry out against welfare for the poor and generously provide bailouts for the rich. That is so relevant for today. It's relevant for today. The way that we can change things today is, especially in my community, for the Edgewood and Joppatown community, is that Edgewood and Joppatown has the highest concentrated of voters. And if we just can get everyone to come out and get these people to come out and vote, we can not only change the culture of our community, but we can change the culture of this county. See, Edgewood and Joppatown to me is that Porsche. I was in Germany. I was I'm a veteran, so I was stationed in Grafenwehr, Germany, and I can remember in Grafenwehr, seeing Porsches, but Edgewood and Joppatown is like that American Porsche. It has 6 gears, but it can go that Porsche can go 100, 150 miles an hour, 170 miles an hour, but Edgewood and Joppatown is stuck in that 3rd gear. We got 6 gears. We have the ability to go 6 gears, but we're stuck in 6 gears. My thing is that as a leader, I want to get us out of 3rd gear. I want to go 4th gear, 5th gear, 6th gear, because Edgewood and Joppatown has the ability to do much better. With strong leadership, we can do much better in this community. Now, we have a lot to do. People in the community have to come out, and we have to engage these people in the community. Finally, Dr. King says that let us stand knowing that some positions are cowardice. Cowardice may ask the question, is it safe? Expedience will ask the question, is it political? Vanity will ask the question, is it popular? But your conscience should ask the question, is it right? For a moral person standing, they should not ask neither is it safe, nor political, nor popular. They must ask the question, are they doing it because it's right? As a community and as leaders, we have to do what's right for our community. Thank you, that's my time.
Anybody have questions? I'm sorry. Anybody have questions for Andre? Okay, Andre, you can't leave yet. You got a question here.
Yes.
Here you go,
On that note, do you think it is right what they're doing in Joppatown with the county council is putting on hold the development of the Muslim Community Center?
No, ma'am, absolutely not. I feel that the folks down in Joppatown, that why are they discriminating against the, it's not even a Muslim community, it's just a community. It's a community of people, okay? People say that the United States is a melting pot. In a melting pot, can I put this here?
Sure.
In a melting pot, you throw things in a melting pot, because I hear this all the time with the whole thing about America's a melting pot. America is not a melting pot. You throw things in a melting pot, it melts together, and then you don't know what it is. America is a stew. You know, in a stew, you can see carrots, you can see beef, you know, you can see peas. That's what America is. America is a multitude of things, but we know what things are. And that's what makes America great, is that even though I'm a black man, I can sit down and talk to you as a white woman. You know, we can come together and we can join together. America is the greatest country in the world. I've been to different countries in the world. I've been to Iraq, I've been to Afghanistan, I've been to Poland, I've been to Turkey, okay? There's no other country like this country. This is the greatest country on earth. And for them, or for the county to make provisions now saying that they have to put in a storm drain system or something like that, that's the I don't want to say it's racist, but that, I mean, it's not right, and it shouldn't happen.
Anybody else have a question? Joe?
Yeah, how you doing?
All right.
I loved your quote, but I have a vision that I like to see from Martin Luther King. When they had a march, it was blacks and whites. And my big thing is that working together, there's an epidemic where I came from Baltimore City and now live in Cecil County, and that is drugs. So I think, how would you change the environment? Meaning that there is rich white kids that go to black neighborhoods about drugs, and black kids will go literally down the street from where I live in Cecil County. How do we change that? Because if the environment doesn't change, people are still going to use. And it's, you know, I have a lot of people who passed away from that.
Sure.
And I don't believe that the war on drugs it's a
joke.
Yeah, it's a joke. It's really a joke. And if you can't change the
No, it's a
environment,
purpose. It's got a purpose.
yeah,
It's not a joke. It's actually nobody.
The problem is, why is it every time we have a war on something,
We lose.
it gets worse?
Are we in question?
I was just on the news the other night. You have a war on drugs, and it gets worse. You have a war on whatever this is, it gets worse. We just don't know how to handle this country.
What was your question, Joe?
well, the question is, how do you change the environment? Because I'm a firm believer, because I have been there. So I'm a firm believer, once you can change the environment, you can actually change the person's mindset. Then they want to work, they want to do things. But if you don't do it and allow it to happen, guess what? It grows.
Sure, absolutely.
And so how would you change it?
How would I change that? First, number one, the school to prison system is real. Number one, we have to get these kids early. That's number one. Because listen, I've been in law enforcement. Okay, I was a narcotics detective. I was undercover, so I know we're not going to, you know, arrest our way out of a drug system, out of this drug. I mean, because listen, I didn't seize, but my team seized $638 million worth of heroin coming into the port, coming into the harbor down there. But you know how we got that? We got that because the cocaine dealer ratted on him, so we took that information so that he could push cocaine so that we could get the heroin. But it doesn't make sense. You know what I mean? But the issue is it's not enforcement, but it's everything under that umbrella. It's enforcement, but it's also education, and on that token, it's also because when you educate people, then they're able to get a job, and then I'm not saying that they're not going to use drugs, but they're more likely not to use drugs if they have an education and they're able to get a job. So that's how I would do it. I run a sports mentoring program. It's called 555 Sports, if anyone wants to bring their kids. But I have a sports mentoring program where I teach kids not only athletically, but I also teach them academically how to go from high school to college, because there's certain prerequisites that they have to hit in order to play D1 ball. So a lot of these kids don't know that, but that's what keeps these kids motivated, and because these kids, nobody wants to be in poverty. Nobody likes living in poverty, but poverty leads to other things, i.e., you know, crime and drugs and all that other stuff. So if we get these kids early and soon, then we can change that whole dynamic.
Any other questions for Andre? Well, thank you very much, sir. Okay, I'm actually the next speaker, but I'm actually just going to do it from here, and I'm going to tell you why. I didn't have paper at home, so I have to use my computer. So I'm going to...
It's environmentally friendly.
It is very environmental. If it works, it's very good. You know, if it doesn't work, it's not. My quote for MLK is, "The time is always right to do what is right." And anybody who knows me knows that's true. My name is Sarahia Benn. I'm running for District 34A, which covers Havre de Grace all the way to Joppatown on the left. And I plan on being the voice of these people in a way that probably they're not used to. I'm in this race because those who have represented this area probably didn't know, what to do. In some cases, they might not even knew how to help all the people in this area. But I'm the one that cares. And that's why I'm with you. So I'm going to tell you why I'm running, how electing me can help you. Every morning I wake up on a normal basis. Usually my normal schedule is to wake up, I do this meditation, and I start looking at these motivations on YouTube. I know, very corny, but I love doing that. Why? Because it makes me a very clear person. Because there's a whole lot of noise in the world that's telling me, no, don't do that, or whatever. They're always telling you to doubt yourself. And in the past couple weeks, I haven't really been able to do that. And many of you know my mom has passed, but many of you didn't know, 2 weeks prior to that, my stepfather passed. And I was raised in a village, just to explain a little bit about me. I had 2 moms and 2 dads. The greatest thing in the world. And I know that sounds really weird, and I'm not going to get too deep in how it was, but the passing of my stepfather and my mom was the end of that village. And so, even at 51, and I might not look like it, I might not always act like it, I ain't gonna lie to you, it threw me for a loop. And everything I'd been doing before, I stopped. But one thing I kept remembering and reminding myself this week was that my mom would say, live your dream. And I plan on doing it, okay? So, as a musician, teacher, entrepreneur, and advocate, most people would think I'd just rather sit around and play music. And in truth, I'll be honest with you, it's way easier than running for public office. Excuse me for crying, but it's still a little close. But this last election has made too many Americans' lives a horror story, just like the movie Get Out. We sometimes have to be the one who steps up and moves towards what is right, in spite of everything. As MLK said and showed, we must be fearless and have faith, in spite of the mountains seem unsurmountable. That's why I've come to realize, and want to tell you guys, you're going to come to realize that I'm with you. In my early 20s, I started studying all kinds of subjects, and I know this is the weirdest thing, but when I was on tour as a musician, I would sit around and just read. Read everything, from philosophy to psychology to all kinds of history. And I hated history in school, and I'm sure most of you guys hated history in school as well. And the main reason that I've come to the conclusion is that, 1, they teach it boringly. 2, the textbooks are inaccurate. But in my 20s, I got a chance to really start reading some stuff. And in doing that, I started getting this love for politics in a way that it actually shocked me. Because I was like, man, I'm from the streets. I mean, I'm from the country too. I had a, that's the complex life here. And I was thinking to myself, wow, why am I getting into this? So over time, I just kept studying and learning the process and whatever and what have you. And so what it did for me was that it made me more sensitive. Like, as a musician, we're just more sensitive to the human experience in general. So that was something that actually made me progress to think, maybe one day I'll run. But every day kept going by, and every year kept going by, and then finally we got to 2008. Now that was different. My dad got the opportunity to see an African American. He never ever thought he'd absolutely see that ever happen in this country, because he came from Jim Crow, and I'm not sure you guys are familiar with the area, but if you're over 50, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And so I thought that was such a great thing. So I started getting my confidence, but wasn't quite there yet. 2012 rolled around, he got reelected, President Barack Obama. Again, I was like, I'm gonna sit up here and complain and do like we do at our tables. But last year, last year changed everything. And it's not because I'm not unfamiliar with Donald Trump, because I'm from New York. I mean, I was in New York when he discriminated against people at that time in the 70s, but it wasn't that he didn't think he could win or anything, but it seemed to change everything for the whole society in a whole, where I started seeing, I call you guys European Americans, but I guess you could be white, but I think you're European. That's just my opinion, okay? But I started seeing you guys have an anger and an energy and a vitriol that I had never seen in my life before. Then it started making me think, maybe this is the time to run, okay? And I went completely from my speech, by the way, because I'm just going with it. But some of the things I would hear out there, I see no changes. Nothing hasn't changed. Folks are tired. Truth is, some folks in America did not vote and some voted wrongly. Let's just be real. Nobody's perfect, but some people definitely voted wrongly. People are desperate for change, but in many cases, they get manipulated into voting for things that keep it the same. District 34A hasn't had a unique voice in it to represent it in a long time. And I'm not saying that because I'm running. I'm saying it because that's what I know to be true. And because I don't have no reason to go past the truth, because I like peace. So it's as if our representatives don't see the transportation system is lacking in 34A. And I'm not criticizing any specific person who is running, has been. I'm just saying they see these things and it's like they don't see it. Imagine if there was more accessible transportation so those who don't own a car or those who rather use public transport instead of driving could access. Imagine if our kids could have access to transportation so you wouldn't have to call the entire neighborhood to get them a ride. Or worse, our kids are standing out on the streets because they don't really have anything to do. I realize this, and I have some solutions because I'm with you, the community. Those who have special needs, elderly, or just need a ride must only travel during the week. I don't think a lot of people realize that. The elderly have limited access. And some of them can walk, some of them can't walk that well, but there's just nothing in this county for them. I guess they just think they don't go out. I guess they think they don't have anything they have to do as well. So how can we truly call these areas like Aberdeen, because I live in Aberdeen, and it's called a city. And I'm from New York City, so you can understand the conflict here, you know what I'm saying? But how can you talk about that being a city and take taxation, and there's no accessible, affordable, convenient transportation? So I realized this in thinking about running for this office because I'm with the people. It's also as if some don't see the 34A constituents who aren't wealthy would love economic empowerment, raising their wages, even fair lending. Do you realize the 40 corridor has the largest population in the county, yet has the least amount of opportunity for the folks in that area? The least. I mean, most of it's corporate. How about micro or community banking loans to repair your car or something else you may need without being gouged? See, I realize that because I come from the community, and I'm with you. And what about healthcare, or should we say health insurance system, that the powers that be thought it was nice to weaken this year? A little bit. Didn't destroy it, but weaken. Isn't 35A part of this opioid, crack, crystal meth, and other drug crisis? I saw it online. Did you guys see the documentary? So they're talking about it being a crisis, but they want to cut health care. What about the elderly who are being neglected by this very system? And I'm just going to tell you something really personal. I'm not going to cry about it. My mom did not have to die. Not this time. She could have died 6 months from now. But the system, in some respects, neglected her. And because of some of my ignorance in how to deal with people, they got me. Now, my mom is at peace. Her soul is at rest. But I can tell you, I would have loved to have my mommy for another 6 months, another 6 days, because I am a mama's baby, and I ain't gonna lie about it. I'm not ashamed at 51 to say that. So we need to have attention to that as well. Finally, everyone is not meant to go to college. Let's be real. Not everyone can afford it. I'm still paying for student loans, and I'm sure some of you guys are too. I was thinking, when I first was in this area, they first started ADVOCACY, I want to say in the early 80s, maybe late 70s, I can't remember. But even when they started it then, it literally was not enough to service this area. So my idea is to build another VOTEC between Aberdeen and Edgewood, or Edgewood and Joppatowne, or advocate for it. I shouldn't say build. I mean, I can't do all that. But I think it's something that we could do and work together in concert with the county, because it's needed. Because I'm telling you, I went up on Hanson. I don't know if any of you guys will go up on Hanson. But there's boys standing out there who have nothing to do. And let me explain something to you. Coming from New York, you have one or two things that's going to happen with people that have idle time. They're either going to be the greatest genius in the world, or they're going to make you pay. Now, they may pay by going to jail, but they're going to make that community pay as well. So I want to start with trying to implement that, and I know for a fact none of the candidates have even thought about that. They don't think it's even necessary, because I'm not sure they're connected to the community in the way maybe I am. So with those solutions, I want to let you know I'm with you. So even though I have so many other policy ideas that would make this corridor not only a great place to live, but a great place to actually come visit, because we need people to come visit. There's great history in this area. We can do a better job. But I'm going to stop right there. Know that all I have is my word, and I only have my word. I'm not perfect. There's nothing perfect about me. And as your representative, I would be a strong voice. I mean, only one voice, but a very strong voice. A voice that hasn't been prevalent in this area. And I know some of you may think, B, now you're a politician, you'll just lie like the rest. But the thing is, I can't be bought. See, anybody who knows me, and I know a lot of people, they know I can't be bought. I am stubborn as they come. I am about the people. I was born with advocacy in my veins and fire in my soul. From the day one, I just came out crazy. I came out in segregation and had to deal with integration and all that, and I always had this fire. I always mentored kids. I used to teach at a private school over in Moncton, Maryland called St. James Academy. I performed all over the world in this area, gospel and non-gospel music, because the real money is in non-gospel music, by the way. But a lot of people think that everybody can be bought, but I can't be, not at all. So I'm going to just close with this. I think of the MLK and Malcolm X quote of standing for something, and I've lived that my entire life. If somebody puts my gravestone, they can put it right there, because that's exactly who I am. I stand for something. So all the policies I've mentioned are necessary for this area, and even better, they're attainable. It's something that I feel that I can advocate for as a state rep. Are these all my policies? No. I mean, I could probably talk all day, but that's not going to make a difference. I just want to just give you a little bit about me. So I'm running because I believe that education with access to good health care, economic opportunities to start businesses or have wages increased, more infrastructure, and better transportation is still far too elusive for far too many voters in District 34A. So I'm asking you to help elect me in the next election on June 26, 2018, so I can be the voice of the people. And I swear to you, it's my word, I only have it. I'm with you, okay? Thank you. That was written at 5:35 a.m. this morning. But, and I enjoyed writing it because I started really thinking about what I really felt, you know, and just being sincere to people. So anybody have any questions? And if I don't have an answer, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to get back to you, I swear to you. Okay.
I like what you were saying about vocational education, and I was curious as to what level would you start at?
You know what, I have not gotten into the particulars, but I know that the VOTEC in our area, I think, doesn't start at 9th grade.
There was a VOTEC high school years
Oh, it's no
ago.
longer?
There was, and it's no longer there.
What?
No, we don't have.
Now I need to
VOTEC.
really do my research, what the heck? Go
The
ahead.
school that they put in its place, basically, it's more of a higher scale, and it's,
So it goes up to like 21, are you saying? Or is it like a trade
well,
school?
it's like more of a trade school.
Okay.
And they have, I think it holds about 300 or 400 students, and they get like I'm trying to remember the exact numbers, but I know they get 3 times the applicants that they can take every year.
Wow.
So we really need a VOTEC school.
I think that would help. And I'll do some more research on the ages because I really don't know.
And well, I want to give you a suggestion as well, if I can. Because I went to a vocational high school and it was very good. But I think that the mistake we make after working in education is waiting until high school. If you wait that long, many of them have already dropped out, because if you don't get them early, they've already been unsuccessful.
So are you
in school.
suggesting
So I'm saying
maybe
middle school?
like a
Because-
magnet school and middle, like
in
middle up?
at least in middle, because if you're not strong academically and you wait until high school, many of them have already dropped out.
That's true.
So think about that.
Well, the thing is, I grew up in a very different school system than we have now.
Oh, yeah.
Believe it or not, I had shop in 6th grade.
Oh, yeah.
And I wasn't
Oh, yeah.
studying shop, but they made us all take different courses. And that's where I kind of bridged, so
Right.
the people that are shaking their head know what I'm talking about. I was definitely thinking about that particular area because I feel like they've taken everything from our kids.
Sure.
And then they sit up here and wonder, why are they standing on the corner? Well, they're standing on the corner because we letting them stand on the corner. Because we want to use them as a piece of product, a commodity that we put in jail instead of using and tapping this talent. We're letting so much talent in America go by the wayside. We worried about people coming from other countries while we're just letting the talent here. We shouldn't worry about who's coming here. We need to worry about doing better about taking care of our area. And I'm telling you, I was very disturbed when I went up, the only reason why I keep using the Hanson area, because there was about, would you say, Cena, about 50 boys standing on that corner with the cops there, and then the cops came through and swooped. All those kids were between the ages of 14 and 19, and I know for a fact they were. And I have a heart for them, because the reality is they didn't deserve to be poor or whatever the reason why they're in the position they're in, because everybody isn't poor, to be honest with you. But the truth is, if the access to opportunities are not there for them, they're going to be our biggest nightmare. And I don't want to have that. I want to go into a new society. And when I say new society, we're never going to be new. We still got a lot of garbage from the past that we need to deal with. And I'm saying garbage because I'm being nice and I'm trying to be judicious. But we have a lot from the past to deal with. But if we don't start dealing with stuff in the current, whoa, it's going to get progressively worse. So, Mr. Gordon?
Yeah, one of the things that we're here at Harford Tech, you have to be an A student to get it. It's not the type of tech school that you and I went.
Right.
Opportunity you and I had up there.
We just had an opportunity, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But here you have to be an A student to get in.
Well,
It's
And they
competitive
funnel
and it's
to
9 through 12.
it's 9 through 12, okay.
They get funneled to U Maryland, so it's tough to get in U Maryland.
Yeah, oh, I'm
So
sure.
it's not a real,
But we have to come up with some kind of a solution, because everybody who doesn't start with straight A's can be the greatest person later.
Yes.
We've got to stop giving up on our kids.
Yes.
We just have to. And remember, these kids become us, who are the next leaders. Christopher?
Sarahia, you were talking earlier about the problem of voter apathy.
Yes.
What kind of things do you see yourself doing or planning to do to address that issue and motivate?
Well, I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm gonna go back old school because I'm a completely unorthodox candidate. Black people love a party. I'm gonna have some good old-fashioned block parties. I'm gonna have some good old-fashioned dinners. I'm serious. I'm gonna do some things to connect in the community in a way that probably hasn't been ever done before. And in talking with some of these kids, just to tell you, I've been out talking to some of these kids. The first thing they say, the game's rigged. You know what my answer is? If the game's rigged, they wouldn't spend all that energy trying to legislate your vote away. If the game's rigged, I just relax. It's like the Chicago, what was it, White Sox in the 1920s? You just sit back and you relax. You let it do. And I see the light go in their eyes. And I think as novice politicians going into real politics, I'll even say this to you, Allison, start connecting. We have kids and listening to them and messaging in a way, not lying. I'm not suggesting lying. I'm suggesting messaging in a way that they can connect to us. You know what I'm saying? They can connect to our campaigns and what we're about. Because we're not going to be, at the end of the day, running 34A, I'm not a miracle worker. I'm not going to be able to save everybody in this area, but one thing I can do is improve the access to certain things, or at least be that voice for those who, like I said, just have been ignored. So that's my answer to that question. Anybody else?
Okay.
Mr. Gordon.
Yeah, let me, I'll be 82 years old.
Congratulations.
I
You look
lived
good.
through Martin Luther King.
Mm-hmm.
At 25 years old, I looked at him coming up, and I said, how can a man of peace have so much violence following him?
Yeah.
And it wasn't until a couple years later, I saw all the pictures of the FBI in there creating all that rioting.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to change the government.
We do.
We do. And I have never seen a movement like we have right now.
We do. We have an opportunity this time. We do.
And we gotta get them out. You know, I can't do it by myself, but I'm sure trying.
Right. But guess what? One person becomes 2 people, becomes 5 people, becomes 10, becomes 100, becomes thousands. Never underestimate the power of your voice. I mean, Joanna, and I know you thought I cut you off, but I'm going to tell you, I'm going to give her thanks. No, I'm going to give her thanks because she invited me to Voices of Change. And I know this is completely impromptu. I'm probably blah, blah, blah. But it's just stuff that I want to say. She invited me to one of her meetings. And I haven't been able to make all her meetings because, like I said, I was dealing with my mom on and off. But the particular meeting I went to had to do with the Sheriff's Department and the ICE initiative where they were going to take on, I guess, playing ICE agents too or whatever. And I'm not going to say everything that went down in the meeting, but one thing that disturbed me about being in that meeting was the language of the representative for the sheriff. And I continued to correct him, and he continued to be defiant and do Fox News. I don't do Fox News, I don't do MSNBC, I don't do CNBC or whatever. I watch them or whatever, but to me it was all political. So when I got a chance to talk to him on a personal level, and I said, I didn't mean to razz you, because I know sometimes I'm a very powerful person. I do. I have a lot of personal power, and sometimes I overpower people. So I said to him, I didn't mean to razz. He said, oh, that's okay. He said, but, just to get back to what you said earlier, that, the cops are afraid. I said, what are they afraid of? I said, you got the burner. Most people ain't walking around with a burner. Well, I'm illegalized. I do. But not everybody's like me. But my point is, and he said they're afraid. I said, but what are they afraid of? They have everything on their side. In many ways, most of what they're doing shouldn't even bring themselves into contact with the public, if we're being honest. He said, but can you imagine walking up to a door and seeing an African American there? And I said, do you know what you just said? And he said to me, well, not me. I'm no longer a cop. I said, no, I'm not. I'm just saying, but I said, they need to turn off the Fox News. I said, because as a musician, I don't turn on Fox to get my advice. If you want to be a better cop, go to Better Cops. Learn more. So that's something that, I was just thinking that I am thankful for Jawanda for, because I would never have had that experience. Even though it was a little contentious for a minute, I would have never had that experience if it wasn't for her. And I met her right on the street, and we talked about several things. I met James on the street, and many of the people that I know I met on the street, and just, we started talking. Next thing you know, I showed up. So I want to thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak. Oh, one more thing, Mr. Gordon, I'm sorry, because I'm just dominating, I'm sorry.
Earlier, it was brought up about the sheriff's department,
Mm-hmm.
but let me say that it's also the state police,
Yeah.
just as much. I traveled, for 6 years, I traveled 40 to Aberdeen,
Mm-hmm.
and I would, practically every day, a white person gets stopped, 1 cruiser car.
Mm-hmm.
A black person gets stopped, it's 5 student cruiser
Yeah.
cars. Three county and 2 state.
Right.
And that's a change. And
Hey.
where you're going, you can change it.
I'm trying to, and people who know me know, I just love everybody. I don't really have nothing against anybody. And I feel like if we start changing people one at a time, like I said, it goes on and so forth. So that's why I'm running, and thank you very much. All right, that's over. Thank God. Well, I was going to read a segment, but I feel like I've dominated the time way too much. Okay? But I want to introduce the last speaker, and if Mr. Dion, just let you know, if you want to speak afterwards, you're more than welcome if you want to. Okay? Because I want to give everybody an opportunity that's running. And I want to let you know that it wasn't that I didn't invite you to speak. It's just that I'm going to be honest with you, the fact that I got 3 other speakers here is a miracle in and of itself. Okay? So, I don't... No, but but I want you to be able to have an opportunity to speak, because I think that's fair, and I'm a fair person. But I want to bring up somebody that I met, I want to say, last February, or maybe, yeah, it was February, or was it March? Whatever, it doesn't matter. It was last year at the Together We Will group. They're a local advocacy group, and, you know, we don't have a large amount of African American represented, but the few of us, we're strong. And I met Allison, and she was talking about, in fact, she was talking about her mother passing, actually, and her struggle in that kind of respect. So she had talked about different things, and then she kind of let me know that, okay, I'm gonna run for District 1, yada, yada, yada. So I was like, man, I'm thinking about it too. But I was like thinking about it. So now let's fast forward to October, or maybe September. We were at a Harford Dems meeting. And we literally left that meeting at 9 o'clock at night until 1 a.m. Her and I conversed about every and anything. And I got to know her in a way that I probably wouldn't have never gotten to know her if I didn't take the time. And I'll be honest with you, she's a good spirit. I love her to death, as I love everybody, by the way. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce Allison Galbraith. She's running for District 1, House of Reps. You guys give her a hand.
All right, how's this with the mic?
Good.
Good?
Just
Put it up?
a little bit.
Here?
There you go. That's
Okay. Somebody point at me if it becomes a problem or something. Something. I think most of you have probably met me or seen me around or heard me go on and on and on about why I don't like Andy Harris. So I'll give you the short version. I couldn't buy health insurance before ACA. And I went to him and I said, my business depends on ACA. I need to be able to buy health insurance. And I asked him if he would vote against anything that allowed for gender rate hikes, which were most of the reason I couldn't afford a policy. And he told me that he thought most people wouldn't mind if women paid more for health insurance.
Wow.
This gets quieter and quieter every time I deliver this line, because I'm like a broken record these days. But, like you were talking about with my mother passed away 3 days later. And she dedicated her entire career to making life easier for other people, to providing them equal opportunities where they didn't otherwise have it, to taking her hardships in life, the things that she had trouble dealing with, raising 4 kids while going to school, while working for the state. She took those experiences and she wanted to make life easier for other people. She started the nursing program at Morgan State University because she was serving on a sub-task force for Martin O'Malley, and they were talking about racial disparities in healthcare. And somebody suggested, let's go into second grader classrooms in Baltimore City and talk to them about becoming a nurse. And my mother said, let's do something real. Let's start a nursing program at a historically black college. She approached Morgan State University. She got the grants for Morgan State University. She started that program from scratch, and today they have a bachelor's, a master's, and a PhD program in nursing at Morgan State University. She taught me that you can take your experiences and the things that are painful for you, and you can prevent other people from having to deal with the same things. Now, I was born with privilege. I acknowledge that. But what I can say is that I understand hardship. I understand what it's like. I'm 35. I lost my mother. She was 67. In the same year, my best friend moved away. My marriage of 10 years fell apart. I've lost a lot of things in the last 2 years. And when Andy Harris said that to me, and then my mother passed away 3 days later, and here's where I'll tie it back to Martin Luther King Jr., I felt like this. There comes a time when the cup of endurance runs over and men are no longer willing to be plunged into an abyss of injustice where they experience the bleakness of corroding despair. I reached a point where I said, something needs to be done. We cannot have a representative in here who refuses to work for the people that he serves. We cannot have a representative that sends you a form letter saying he's going to do the exact opposite of what you asked for when you just wrote to him and said, my livelihood is on the line. That I need this to keep a roof over my child's head. It's completely unacceptable that that's the kind of answer that we get out of our representatives. And I looked around, and at the time there were no other, well, I talked to a few people about possible candidacy, and I had a conversation with most of them, and at the time there was nobody else who was going to step up. And I looked at my own background, and a lot of times people are told, well, you're not qualified for this, or why are you going to go straight into this level, or, you know, why are you doing that? I have 10 years of experience in the federal government, and I understand exactly how it works. And I spent so much time on top of the 40 or 50 hours that I was working while trying to put a veteran through a bachelor's degree, and dealing with my mother being ill. All of these things, I still worked to better myself and to make sure that when it came to the federal government where I work, that I was an expert, that I knew how it worked. I have a proven track record of saving it money. And I looked at Andy Harris and I thought, I have life experience too. I understand what normal people are dealing with. I am not privileged enough that I can quit my job to run for office. So I own my business and I operate my business during the day. I'm a single mother caring for my child. My father has Parkinson's. And I'm lucky that I have siblings to help with those things. And they're very, very helpful. Because I can't do it all. Nobody can do it all. but we can build a coalition, and we can have a community, and we can all stand up together, and we can say, this district is ours. So I'm here because I think that we need the people's voice in Congress. I think that Congress lacks diversity, not just gender diversity, not just age diversity, or racial diversity, or religious diversity, socioeconomic diversity. Most people are not privileged enough to quit their job and run for office. And if they don't experience those problems firsthand, they go in there and they fight for the things that they know, that they can relate to. And that's why we get these idiots in there fighting for gun legislation when people's health insurance premiums are going up $150 or even $1,000 a month. It's unacceptable that this is what we're getting from our government, and it's time that we all work together to change it. Now, I don't have every perspective, but what I can promise people is that I will listen. I understand. I will try to take my experience and compare it to other people's and understand what they are dealing with too. And if you come to me as your representative and say, I have a problem and I need help, I will be there. Because I don't want to just be your representative. I want to be part of your community. I think I'm good.
Do we have any questions for Miss Allison Galbraith?
What's the first?
Who would like to give a question? Well, I have a question. Do you have any specific policy in terms of, and I know this is going to sound weird, but I'm really about this banking thing. Because I grew up in a time where people could get signature votes in their community, and they can't really now because the government's kind of done with it. Is there anything that you could do to encourage easier lending, or do you have any ideas about banking in terms of, I know this is an odd question, but I'm one of those people.
You've called me outside my area of expertise.
That's okay, but will you research it for me and get back to me? Okay.
Yeah, and I'd love to have a conversation about it.
Let me ask you this other question. Yeah, we can have that. Let me ask you this other question. In terms of healthcare, I think they said with this tax law that they're going to give more an exemption, but it's going to end up making elderly people's premiums rise probably more than anybody. Do you know anything in concern to that, in terms of what you would maybe possibly present, or would you try to improve the ACA, or do you have a completely different idea, such as universal health care?
I said this yesterday, and half the people in this room were there. Legislation is in black and white.
Right.
And there are a dozen different ways that you could get after universal health care. I believe we all deserve health care.
That's a start.
That's a start.
Including
Now,
Medicare. Including Medicare.
Including Medicare. Right. Well, my preference is actually for an expansion of Medicaid, much like MCHIP, Maryland Children's Health Insurance Program is implemented, where everybody gets dental and vision too, because one of the things that I saw is that Medicare won't cover dentures, and teeth, I would say, are medically necessary.
Yes.
Did that actually answer you?
You know what? I don't think you had to exactly. I think when we ask people questions, we expect these great specific answers. But what you did say to me was that you're going to find and look at different options. And that is something that Congress, in my opinion, right now is not really doing. And that's what we want as a representative. So you answered it in your own way. And I'm fine with the answer.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Allison, what are some issues on which you think you could bring into the fold some former Andy Harris supporters?
There are these, well, okay, so one, I have a lot of Republicans on the campaign, and they're there because of health care. They're saying their premiums are going up, GOP's not doing anything about it, they know it to be a problem, and they know it's not gonna get any better. They also understand that free market principles have no place in emergency care or, a lot of healthcare areas. So healthcare is a big thing. Anti-corruption, I don't think anybody likes the idea of their representative voting for their donors and nobody else. Nobody likes that. Then there are more obscure ones like horse slaughter.
Yes, yes.
And the environmental concerns, when you're talking about the agricultural community within District 1 versus the watermen, and our economy is based around those two things on the Eastern Shore, you get people who understand that you just can't go on with his policies. You can't be cutting funding to the Bay. And I had this woman. I really liked this woman. She started off yelling at me. It's one of those things about farming and Nancy Pelosi and no more regulations. But by the end of the conversation, I was talking to her about, I said, well, I understand that Maryland farmers have gone a long way to be environmentally friendly, and that a lot of the garbage in the Bay is coming actually from New York and Pennsylvania, and runoff is coming from there. And would you support I asked her, would you support federal regulations so that other states had to do what Maryland farmers are already doing? And she goes, oh yes, absolutely. And I thought that was great. You know, the woman who started off by screaming at me, no more regulations. But there are lots of things, you just have to figure out what it is. Caregiver issues are a really serious thing, and when you have the baby boomer population aging, and you have more and more people falling into the sandwich generation where they're raising kids and also caring for parents, this is a huge problem that leads to a significant amount of lost income. $325,000 is the average lost income for that. And that's bipartisan. But there's nothing being done about it right now. I mean, there's nothing being done about it. And younger people, millennials, are not as ideologically divided as you might think. Good luck finding a millennial who doesn't believe in climate change, or thinks that you shouldn't have access to birth control, or things like that. There's all kinds of issues that you can talk to them about. So I talk to the young Republicans quite frequently.
Any other questions? Mr.
Let
Dion?
me finish one off on Medicare. How many Medicare people we have in this room that are on Medicare?
That's my beautiful aunt, by the way, right there. I just want you to say hi to her.
My payment to Medicare every month for me and my wife, okay, right now, is over $1,000. $1,000 a month for Medicare that I paid 50-some years, all my working life, as we all pay, comes automatically out of our salary. I'm now paying over $1,000 a month. And the biggest part of that is supplement B. And that is the biggest cost. The supplement B part is well over $500 of that, just for me and my wife. They treat you like two separate people. It ain't like all the years you worked where you had your spouse on your medical insurance. If you worked for a company and then you added your spouse or added your kids, you know how that was. Well, it's different. On Medicare, you're treated like two totally individual people, and that's how you're charged, okay? So you get A going in, then you take Medicare Part B when you retire, it's right after 65, I took Medicare Part B, and Medicare Part B, okay, automatically comes out of your Social Security check, okay? Now, if you want dental, just like you were talking about, you gotta take that, okay? So that's, for me, to cover me and my wife, that's $80 a month, okay? To take the supplement is well over $500 a month for the two of us. Now, if you don't, a lot of people don't take it because they can't afford it, okay? And it's hard not to afford it because my wife went in and she had a heart issue, and she had to get a pacemaker and a defibrillator replaced in her heart after she died twice, and they hit her with the paddles, and she came back, thank God. And that pacemaker, if anybody's familiar with a pacemaker costs about $7,000 or $8,000 for the pacemaker. Okay, that's not counting the doctor and everybody else. But you get a pacemaker defibrillator, $48,000. The unit itself costs $48,000. And then you got the doctor, hospital, that whole thing for my wife cost $100,000. Okay, thank God I had to supplement, because I would have had to pay 20% of that bill. Okay, so my bill myself would have been well in excess of $20,000. And then every single December, and you guys can chat right in, every single December you get another thing and it goes up, right?
Goes up.
It goes up. So
I
the
saw
rest of
that
your
letter at
life,
my dad's house.
the rest of your life, every December comes and the bill goes up, you know, increases. And you're on a fixed income. I mean, I'm not on fixed income, but most people are. And because you get this, like we got this big Social Security increase of $27, okay? And my Medicare went up $180.
I'm a negative $9.
There you go. $9. So something really needs to be looked at, you know, for our seniors on this, because most of them get off and they get on a fixed income, and every December they get whacked. You know, they might get $20 increase in their Social Security, then they get banged, you know, heavy because their Medicare goes up. And you can't do anything about it, since you want to not have the insurance.
So do you have a question?
My question is, what can you do, or what do you recommend, or what is your ideas about supplementing Medicare for our senior citizens?
Well, I think part of it is making sure, first of all, that Social Security is a livable wage, that we don't have our seniors living in poverty. That's ridiculous. But beyond that, I mean, like I said, I observed a lot of issues with Medicare firsthand with my mother. You know, I flinch a little when I hear Medicare for All, and I've read the bill. It's okay. The bill itself is okay, but Medicare, the current program as it exists, when I think of it, what I think of is being in a hospital, standing over a bed and saying, how many days does she have to stay here before this is going to be covered? Or somebody saying to me, well, if you send her to a skilled nursing facility, then we're going to cover this much each month. Except if she wants to die at home, then the only thing that we're going to give you is a nurse that comes in a couple of days a week, if that. And we'll give you a bed. Sorry. And my mom hated hospitals. The last thing she wanted was a skilled nursing facility. You know, I think that we need to relook at all of these programs. My ideal, and like I said, there are a dozen ways to do anything. Pick a goal, figure out the best way that you can get it, and go for what's legislatively viable. Because it doesn't make any sense to go chasing dreams if you're never going to get it through. But my ideal would be something like a massive expansion of Medicaid, where not just Medicaid, you know, for adults, but the children's health insurance program, where dental and vision, everything is covered, and it's much more like a national healthcare system, and you just go and you get whatever it is that you need. When you put everybody in the same pool, it lowers the cost for everybody. I mean, there's a cost argument for it, there's a business argument for it. You can say that it promotes entrepreneurship if you're not tethered to an employer for healthcare. There are a lot of reasons to do it. You know, and I think it's just going to depend on how good of a solution you can get through. I think is going to depend on the majority in Congress when we go in there in 2019.
So just 1 second, just to piggyback, because we are doing an MLK event. Some of the things she said actually spoke to some of the things that Martin Luther King and his civil rights warrior, I'm getting all crazy, civil rights movement people did. It was called a freedom budget. And they were proposing that there be a livable wage. And they had calculated at that time it would be $20 billion. In today's dollars, it'd be $145 billion. Now, a lot of people say, wow, that's a lot of money. Sarahia?
Well, they just threw $45,000 defense didn't ask for over there.
So what you suggested is very much in the vein of MLK and his freedom budget, and I would definitely challenge everybody to get a chance and opportunity to read it. I was going to read some of it, but time is kind of going on. And he believed in Keynesian economics, which deals in terms of, and this is where a lot of people lose understanding what's going on for politicians. They believed that there needed to be some kind of way to pump money when the systems were volatile. In other words, sometimes you have demand that's high, but it should not inflate when you know, inflation should actually go the opposite way. So he really believed in that vein, and a lot of what you're talking about kind of fits in that. So that was just my comment. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
And no, I'm done.
I'm done too.
Oh no, but you're gonna ask a question though, weren't you?
You got it covered.
No, I got it covered. Okay.
You know, I have a note here that I didn't use because that happens every time I speak. But equity is giving everyone what they need to be successful, and equality is treating everyone the same. Equality aims to promote fairness, but it can only work if everyone starts from the same place and needs the same help. I think every American family needs to be given the tools and resources that they need to be successful in life. I think that's really, really important, and I do believe that it is also a responsibility of the government to ensure that that is provided for people. And I don't remember who said it, maybe you said it, but it costs a lot more. Or no, it was what Allison said. It was about children versus a broken man.
Right.
It makes a lot more sense to prevent problems before they occur than it does to let something get to the point where it's almost irreparable and then try and deal with it. And that's the path that I see our government going down right now. And that is terrifying to me.
Any other questions?
I don't have a question, but I want to give Allison, commend her on her Medicaid for all. When HR 676 was first introduced, and then Medicare for all, and I've been on Medicare for 17 years now. Medicare sucks, as far as I'm concerned. It's good in one way, but then you always got that 20%. There's always something in there, and like who's brought up, the premiums are always going up. When I got on, the premiums were down under 100. This year they went from 129 to 134. Now, back in 2005, George W. Bush introduced Medicare Advantage, and I've been on that ever since, because right away I took out a supplement. But my monthly premium for a supplement was $130. The following year they jumped it up to $152. If I tried to get it now, it'd be over $600. So it's just, it's not a good system. Where the Medicaid for all is definitely a fantastic system, and I commend you for even thinking about it.
Question?
Well, just to comment on that, and that's because the Medicare is good, it's the insurance company for the supplemental that is the problem. And why should any insurance company make a profit of our illness? That's why we should be for universal health care. I do not believe that any insurance company, and I think that you believe the same thing when you're talking about universal health insurance.
Right, it's a fundamental misalignment of profit motive with the well-being of everyday people. And you see that across a lot of things. Private or for-profit universities are a good example. And they're really taking advantage, they take advantage of a lot of people, but especially veterans, and they have the GI Bill, or privatized prisons. We don't need to incentivize companies or corporations, to want to incarcerate people. That serves nobody. Well, I guess it serves corporations, but it's not helping the people. It's not helping the people, and it's supposed to be of the people, for the people, by the people, and that's what we need to go back to, and we need to get the big money out and have people who understand everyday problems in there representing us in Congress.
But the only way to change the system is to actually vote in people who are about going there and doing things for the public good. I think we underestimate our voting attitudes, and I say behaviors, because some of them are emotional, and some of them are just, all of it's partisan, and that's kind of how the system has been. So let's be real, we're not going to be able to change everything in the government overnight, because that government system is very stringent in how you have to do a constitutional convention. But I believe if you put people in like Allison, me, and other people on all levels, and I'm not just saying because I'm running, that we all have a better chance, but we have to stop thinking that, well, this one has to have this qualification, this one has to be perfect in this one. We have to start giving certain people a chance, and we have to stop giving people who do the same thing over and over, selling us the same bag of tricks like Barnum and Bailey, over and over. And that means that all of you have to start going out, and this is where I'm going to go into the voter thing of a little bit, and then she can say her little final statement. We have to go and find 6 other people that aren't voting, haven't been registered. And we need to encourage them to do that. Okay? That's a challenge. That's an easy challenge. We should all be able to do that in less than 2 days, maybe a week. The more we do that, and I mean, it's not only just in this area, we could do it outside this area, because I have a friend that's running in the 45th District for state delegate. I go down and help her all the time. We are going to get better only together, because it's like a football team. We're only as good as the 56th player on that team. I don't care what we look like, I don't care who and where we come from. If we don't start looking at our community in that way, we are going to be we're going to be like in the Hunger Games. I'm just being real. Yeah. District 1, District 2, District 3, and all that stuff. You think I'm joking? It's going to happen. Okay, so we need to really embrace some of the messages that these very vibrant speakers came out to say. And Allison, I'm going to let you have it.
You know, the only thing I have to add here is that I think it's important to remember that perspective is a qualification. The most basic thing a representative needs to do is to go in there and advocate on your behalf. They're going to be advocating for the things that they understand, the things that they live. That's what they'll do if nobody's talking to them. So to have lived the same things that ordinary people deal with, that the 98% deal with, that to me is absolutely a qualification. And assuming all things are equal in terms of capability, otherwise I would much rather have somebody who has struggled in their life in there representing me. Because I know that that person is going to fight that much harder.
So much, Allison. I appreciate you for your patience, because she was scheduled at 2:30 and you see what time it is. Mr. Dion, I'm sorry, but we're going to have another event, and I'm going to make sure that you're a speaker, okay? But you did get your little moment, and I'm telling you, you schooled me on some things. My aunt does, you schooled me on a whole lot of things. I just want to thank all who came out.
Medicare goes up, you can't do anything about it.